Hello everyone. Welcome to the Ear That Peaceful Corner, a channel where we slow down, relax and embark on stories that help calm the mind and prepare for a good night's sleep. Before we begin this journey, it would be an honor to have your like and subscription, and consider activating the bell so you won't miss any new stories that come out every week. Always 2 brand new stories for you. I want to know from you, at what time of your insomnia are you listening to me, and from what part of the world are you watching? Write it in the comments. I love hearing from you and chatting a bit. Now grab your blanket, adjust your position, and close your eyes. Let's travel together to a remote cabin in Alaska, where the silence is colder than the wind outside. Prepare to feel the cold, the loneliness, and the time that seems not to pass. This is your story. You are the protagonist. Let's begin. You are in a cabin alone in the middle of a remote, icy, forgotten region of Alaska. The only road disappeared in the last blizzard, and the radio stopped working 2 days ago. You were only there for a few days. An experience of voluntary isolation. But winter arrived earlier than planned. Now you are trapped. The cabin's wood groans with the strong wind outside. The ice on the windows forms grotesque designs. The fire in the fireplace is still alive, but with limited firewood. You hear everything. Every sound, the wood, the wind, the silence between them. You are dressed in warm clothes, but they no longer seem sufficient. Your fingers hurt when you try to hold them together. The last real food you ate was yesterday. Today, only unlabeled cans remain. You haven't wanted to open any yet. Not out of hunger, but out of fear of discovering that there's nothing useful left there. The sky is dark, but you don't know if it's night or just the constant darkness of the polar winter. Outside, everything is white, except for grey patches of rock and bare trees. You look at the horizon through the crack in the door. No sign of life, no sound of footsteps, no light, just the wind, always the wind. And then you go back inside, lock the door, sit back in the wooden chair. The heat from the fireplace barely reaches you. You hear your stomach growl and close your eyes for a moment. But even with your eyes closed, you feel that time there does not pass. You are trying to distract yourself, but the book you brought seems to make no sense at all. The words dance on the page, and you wonder if it was a good idea to start with Dostoevsky. Right now, the bookmark has been in the same place for 3 days. You pretend you read it, but you know you didn't. You try to listen to music, but the signal dropped. Spotify refuses to work offline because, apparently, you never downloaded anything. You feel angry at yourself. The playlist of songs for the ice was never downloaded. Now, all you have is the sound of the wind and a silence that seems to mock your existence. You decide to explore the cabin. There's a bed, a rug that has seen better days, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom whose only luxury is the promise of a hot bath that never comes. You turn the faucet in the sink. A jet of icy water splashes directly on your face. This wakes you up more than any coffee would. You sneeze, loudly, and it echoes through the wood. For the first time, you realize the loudest sound in the last few hours was your sneeze. You laugh and then become serious. You start talking to a kettle. The kettle doesn't answer, but at least it doesn't judge you. When you open the pantry, You find 3 unlabeled cans, a shriveled potato, and a package of oatmeal that looks more like cement than cereal. You open the first can. It's something brown. Maybe beans, maybe meat, maybe lasagna. You don't smell it. You decide to eat it with your eyes closed. The taste is of regret with a slight metallic touch. You think of giving up, but remember there's nowhere to go. The blizzard outside makes the whole world seem to have disappeared. Only the cabin remains. And you, and perhaps now a slight taste of rust on your tongue. Night falls, or at least it seems to fall. The sky darkens even more, and the inside of the cabin takes on shades of shadow. You try to light another candle. It burns, crackles, and goes out. The match breaks in your hand. You swear under your breath, but no one answers, not even the kettle. You try to sleep, but the mattress feels like it's made of stones and untold secrets. You turn on your side and then on the other. The blanket smells of old wood and mold, and the pillow of defeat. You close your eyes and hear the sound of the wind beating against the windows. Outside, the cold scrapes at the wood as if it wants to come in. And you think that all this could be worse, but immediately regret having thought that. A noise. You hear a different noise. Something moved outside. You sit up slowly, your heart beating faster. You go to the window. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The snow covers everything. Even your footprints have disappeared. It's as if you never arrived there, as if you were dreaming of the worst resort in the world. You go back to bed and make a promise. Tomorrow you will go out, you will walk a bit, look for a signal, firewood, life, but you already know you won't. Because just opening the door, the cold comes in as a warning that the outside is even worse than the inside. You take a deep breath and wonder what is happening in your city. Maybe everyone is sleeping or complaining about the heat. Maybe someone is eating a pastry. You smile slightly and then feel a slight despair. Why did thinking about a pastry make you even hungrier? And there are still 2 unlabeled cans left. One of them is probably corn. Or worse, you close your eyes again and the wind sings outside. A song that seems made just for you. A song of cold, silence, and hunger. And the kettle continues to look at you, motionless, quiet, judging. You wake up to the sound of your own teeth chattering. The temperature has dropped. You feel it in your bones. Every movement seems like a protest from your body against the cold. The firewood ran out during the night. The fire turned to embers. The embers turned to dust, and now only the cold air breathes with you in the cabin. You try to get up slowly, but your body is stiff, as if you had slept inside an icebox. You put on everything you have. Socks, a coat, another coat, a hat that smells of a chest. Even so, it's not enough. The only thing left is the decision you made the night before. You need to go out, look for something, anything. So you put on your boots. They are still damp. You don't know if from the ice or from your own sweat from yesterday. You open the door. A wind enters like an icy slap to the face. Your eyes sting immediately. The white light of the snow reflects on your face like 1,000 small cold lamps. And then you take the first step. Your foot sinks. The snow swallows you up to your mid-calf. The second step is worse. And the third, you are already regretting it. The world outside has no sound. Everything is snow. Snow on snow. On snow. Twisted trees, covered and immobile as if they had been frozen for millennia. You walk a few meters. The cold bites your face, scrapes your skin. Your fingers hurt even inside your gloves. And the silence. The silence screams. Such a great silence that you hear your own heartbeats. The snow seems to absorb the sound of your footsteps. It's like walking on a wet pillow, only frozen and hostile. You look back. Your footprints are almost erased. The wind sweeps everything away. In a few minutes, it will be as if you never walked. You start to walk faster, but the cold is like quicksand. The more you struggle, the more it sucks you in. You decide to go back, but now the way back seems more distant. The cabin has disappeared into the whiteness. The world is a wall of ice. You spin in circles, and for a second you are afraid of not finding your own house anymore. Then you see the dark, square shape with a crooked chimney. The cabin is there waiting, like a mouth opening to swallow you back. You go in, close the door, sit on the floor and stay there for a while, just breathing, just existing. The feeling is a failure. You didn't bring firewood, you didn't find help, you didn't find a sign of life. You just confirmed that the world outside is even emptier than the one inside. You light the last candle and decide to open another can. This time something yellow, corn or preserved grains of sadness. You eat slowly, not for the taste, but because you don't want to reach the last spoon. Then you lie down, but you don't sleep. You just lie there looking at the dark ceiling, hearing nothing. And it is in this nothing that you understand that now the cabin is no longer a shelter, it is an entire world. Your world and everything that exists fits within these four walls. You, the cold, the kettle, and time, which seems to get longer and longer. You wake up with a strange thought. Today is Tuesday, but it doesn't make the slightest difference. The cabin has no calendar. Time here has no face. It's just a white, cold mass that stretches out before you. You sit covered by layers of clothes and bad decisions. The floor feels harder today. Or perhaps your bones are more sensitive. You look at your feet. They are still there, frozen, quiet, as if they too are waiting for something to happen. You try to remember how you ended up here. The advertisement was beautiful. Rustic cabin in the heart of Alaska. A complete spiritual retreat. No distractions, just you and nature. You thought, it will be good to disconnect. Now, all you want is weak Wi-Fi and bad instant noodles. You get up slowly and look at the table. A plate, a spoon, a mug that is now your cup, bowl, and dessert plate. You look at the kettle and today it seems a little arrogant. You decide you're not going to talk to it today. It has been staring at you with that crooked spout since yesterday. You decide to create a routine. Because after all, routine gives meaning to time. So you establish that at 10 a.m. you will sweep the floor. At 11 a.m. you will try to remember the name of your 4th grade teacher. At noon you will open the 3rd can. At 2 p.m. you will exercise, or at least think about exercising. At 3 p.m. you will look out the window and pretend you saw a bear. And at 6 p.m. you will have dinner with dignity, cold corn and a wilted potato. A king's meal. A defeated king. But still a king. You look outside. The landscape hasn't changed. Snow, whiteness, stillness. But you swear that tree was a little more to the right before? Or maybe not. Maybe your mind is playing tricks, moving things around just to confuse you. You start talking to yourself first, just to test your voice. Then, because the silence bothers you more than the loneliness itself, you find yourself narrating what you're doing, as if it were a documentary. Now he walks to the window. He observes the white, endless world. A world without signal, without Uber, and without hope. You laugh alone. Immediately you wonder if laughing alone is the first sign of insanity, but then you answer yourself, and no, the first sign is talking to kettles. The kettle doesn't respond. Good thing, you try to remember smells. The smell of fresh coffee, the smell of a clean pillow, the smell of the bakery on the corner. Here the smell is of damp wood and a mix of mold and bad decisions. You try to remember the noise of the city, the sound of the bus passing, the neighbor washing the car at 7 in the morning. You even miss that noise, the life happening there. The only sound is the wind. Always the wind and the creak of the wood that seems to whisper. You should have stayed home. You lie down, pull the blanket that no longer warms, and before closing your eyes, make a mental list. Still half a can of corn, 1 match, a dream of escape, and a kettle that looks like it knows more than it should. You take a deep breath and think that tomorrow maybe the tree will go back to the right position. Maybe the wind will stop singing so sadly. Maybe the corn will run out. But for today, you survived. And in this place, that's more than most could achieve. You wake up with a dry mouth. Your lips cracked during the night. The humidity in the air has disappeared. You get up slowly, as if waking from a bad dream only to fall into another. The cabin is colder, more than yesterday. The ice on the windows now advances along the edges of the wood. A warning or a legend. You walk to the kitchen. Pick up the kettle. It's light. There's almost no water. You'll need to go out, open the door, collect clean snow, and melt it. You hesitate, but your body has already made the decision. The wind greets you as always, sharp, merciless. You cover your face with your scarf and walk to a clearing. The snow there seems clean enough. You fill a pot with it, but your fingers are already losing sensation. Back in the cabin, you light the embers with the last match. The flame is weak, but alive. You watch in silence as the snow turns to water and the water begins to boil. You look for something to add flavor. You search the shelves. You find a jar with an erased label. Open it. Smell it. It's something dry, perhaps leaves. You decide to call it tea and pour a little into the hot water. The taste is bitter, but it's hot. And hot now is more valuable than any delicacy. You warm yourself with the mug in your hands and for a few minutes feel that there is still something like comfort. Then you get up and start exploring the cabin again. Look under the bed. Nothing. Behind the shelf, dust and a spider. Inside an old chest in the corner, you find something. An ancient bow, dusty, with a loose string and a solitary arrow. You hold the bow carefully. It seems to have been left there years ago. A souvenir, or perhaps someone's last attempt at survival before you. You also find a rusty but still sharp knife, and some nails, rope, and an old piece of leather. You spend the rest of the day trying to adjust the bow, stretch the string, try to understand the weight. You've never hunted anything, not even a fly. But now even a rabbit seems like a luxury prize. Outside, the snow continues to cover everything, but you notice some footprints, small, light. Some animal passed by there not long ago. You prepare yourself, put on your warmest clothes, put the knife in your belt, and go out with the bow in your hand. You feel ridiculous, but you also have nothing left to lose. Each step sinks into the snow. You follow the tracks. They get lost among bushes and fallen branches, and then disappear. The animal was smarter or the wind was faster. You stand still, feeling the cold penetrate your layers of clothes. Your fingers barely respond anymore. You slowly let go of the bow. It falls in the snow like a bad idea, and you return empty, cold, and a little more tired. Back in the cabin, you gather pieces of wood from the outside. Some are damp, others broken, but they still burn. You revive the fire, sit before it, and watch the flame as if watching an old movie. In silence, you no longer talk to the kettle, but it continues to look at you. Perhaps deep down, it's rooting for you or waiting for the time to be useful again. Night falls, you lie down and dream of food, of fresh bread, of the smell of fried onion, and of a working radio. But when you wake up, it's just the cabin, the snow, and you still alive, still trying. You're sitting by the fire, stirring an empty mug for over an hour. The fireplace's warmth doesn't reach your feet, which remain numb. You twirl the mug between your fingers as if expecting it to fill itself. It doesn't fill. No magic happens there. Just the sound of the crackling wood and the imaginary clock inside your head. Suddenly, a sound outside, low, muffled, a dragging, a creak, perhaps the snow giving way under the weight of something. You slowly stand up, your knees complaining as if you'd aged years in a few days. You walk to the door, don't open it, just press your ear against it. Silence. Another minute. Silence. Then the sound again, something scraping against the side of the cabin. You hold the doorknob and imagine what it could be. A branch, an animal, a wind angrier than the others. You open the door slowly. The cold enters in waves, pushing you a step back. Your eyes try to adjust to the opaque light of the white. Nothing, just the snow and a mark on the ground. A faint trail, as if something had dragged a bag or a sled. But there are no footprints, just that long mark, coming from nowhere, going nowhere. You watch for a few seconds. The wind makes your eyes water. You squint, but see nothing but the whiteness. And that mark that's already starting to be covered again. You close the door, lock it, lean your back against the wood. Take a deep breath and go back to stirring the mug. For the rest of the day, you try to pretend that nothing happened, but you look out the window more frequently. You hope to see something or someone, but the only thing you see is yourself, reflected in the glass, pale, tired, almost unrecognizable. You decide to rearrange the objects in the house. Not for utility, but to have something to do. You move the kettle. Now it's on top of the shelf, looking at the ceiling. Maybe it saw something. Maybe not. You sweep the floor. Count the loose nails in the boards. Read the instructions on the matchbox for the third time and, finally, sit down to nothing. To the emptiness, to the silence that has returned to live there. Night falls silently. The fire burns low. You lie down, but you don't sleep. You close your eyes and think, oh, what if there are more marks tomorrow? In the dark, the sound of your breathing seems loud. You hear every beat of your own heart, every creak of the floorboards, every memory that comes to visit. Do you remember the sound of your mother's blender? Do you remember the neighbor listening to loud radio? Do you remember a dog barking in the afternoon? And you wonder if those sounds really existed, or if you just invented them to not feel so alone. Now, the next day, you wake up and go straight to the door. Open it slowly. Nothing, no scratch, no mark. The snow smooth, as if it had been reset, as if the world had been covered over to hide whatever happened. You go back inside, close the door and say without thinking, I guess I wasn't supposed to understand anyway. The kettle remains silent. The wind does not. You have been sitting for so long that you start to wonder if you have become part of the furniture. Your leg tingles, your mind too. Then, for no apparent reason, you look at the floor. There is a loose nail, a worn board. Something inside you, perhaps boredom, perhaps instinct, says, lift that board. You pick up the rusty knife and begin to force the edge. It gives way with a dry snap. An old smell rises. Damp wood, muffled earth, and something else. You lift the board and see darkness, a small hole. You stick your hand in, touch something, bring it out. An old shoe, unfortunately only 1 foot. And it doesn't fit you. You smile. A sad, dry laugh, as if someone had made a bad joke at the funeral of your comfort. You continue digging with your hands, removing dirt, retrieving an empty bottle, the label erased. Inside, a piece of paper. You carefully remove it. It is a list with handwritten words. Potato, firewood, rope, hope. You don't know if it's a shopping list or a list of losses, but you decide to leave it on the wall. You nail it with an old nail, like a painting, like a decoration for someone who no longer expects visitors. In the following days, you open more boards, find a crooked nail, a button, a small bone, maybe from an animal, maybe not. You keep everything. Each item, a relic, a private museum of solitude. The days pass, or maybe not. You no longer know how many. The clock has stopped. The light is always the same. The constant sound of the wind is like being trapped within the same hour, repeated infinitely. You begin to forget your face. You try to remember the mirror in your house, the reflection, the haircut that now makes no sense. You run your hand over your chin, feel hair, or is it dust? The kettle now has a name. You call her Mrs. Carmen and talk to her in the morning. Today you asked, do you think the wind is stronger or are we weaker? She didn't answer, but she seemed to reflect. In the afternoon, you played checkers with a piece of potato and corn kernels. The corn won. You were sad, but you didn't argue. After all, it's been there since the beginning. At night, you hear that sound again, the dragging on the side of the cabin. But now two sounds, one from each side, as if someone or something was circling around. You lock the door, put out the candle, and sit on the floor with the knife in your lap. Not out of fear, but out of routine, because now even fear has a set time. You close your eyes and for the first time dream of the cabin. Inside your dream, you try to leave, but open the door and come face to face with it. The same room, the same chair. The kettle smiling with its eyes. You laugh or cry. It's hard to tell. The afternoon passed without fanfare. You spent hours trying to remember the lyrics of an old song, but only managed a fragment. And even then, it repeated in your mind for hours, as if it were the only soundtrack available in that soundless landscape. Night arrived as always, cold, opaque, and slow. But the sky brought something different. You look out the front window, a thick wooden frame that trembles with the wind. Outside, the fog spreads across the snow like a living blanket. It dances in silence, rising to the treetops. And above, in a clearing between the clouds, you see the moon. Huge, yellow, stretched over the top of a mountain that looks like it's made of charcoal. You stare at it for a while, a long time, almost forgetting where you are, but then something interrupts. A deep, damp noise, like a deep breath, very close to the cabin's outer wall. You freeze. No, literally, not yet. But inside, the sound continues. Heavy footsteps, a dull dragging sound over the snow, and then a dry thud directly against the door. You move away slowly, without making a sound. The still-lit fire illuminates your silhouette on the wallboards. You crouch down, pick up the knife, and just listen. The noise repeats. The weight leans against the door. The wood groans, but doesn't give way. There's a snuffling, as if the creature's warm air is trying to find cracks to enter. And then the doorknob, it turns slightly once, twice. You hold your breath and think, a bears can learn that. It's just a doorknob, a turn, a push, and that's it. They don't need to break in anymore, just understand the mechanism. What if it knows? The doorknob turns once more, but the latch resists. The creature pushes, but doesn't insist. For long minutes, the bear just stays there, breathing, smelling your presence. Perhaps it understands that you are inside. Perhaps it doesn't care, or perhaps it's just as lonely as you are. And then the sound of footsteps slowly moves away, the noise of the snow being pressed by something very heavy. And finally, silence. You let out the air. You don't know how long you had been holding it. You sit down on the floor again, the knife in your lap, and for an instant, the strange feeling that the house breathed with you. You look out the window again. The fog has grown thicker, so dense that you can barely see the fence a few meters from the cabin. The moon still shines, but now it seems paler, hidden, as if it too were afraid. You lock the door once more, lean a piece of furniture against it, and speak almost in a whisper. He didn't know. Not yet, but maybe one day. You go to bed early that night, but you don't sleep. You just listen, waiting for another noise, another turn, another presence, but it doesn't come back. The world outside remains silent. The cabin motionless, the kettle quiet, you awake. Still here, the day breaks with a strange tone. The sky doesn't change much, but there's something in the silence. It's different. It's no longer the same silence you knew. Now it has weight, layers, intention. You wake up with an unusual sensation, as if you had been watched during your sleep. There was no noise, no knock on the door, but something invisible, stood there, waiting for you to wake up. You get up slowly, your joints complain. The fireplace is cold. The kettle on its back, the screen seems withdrawn. You look out the window. Yesterday's marks, made by the bear, have already disappeared. But now there's something else, small footprints, smaller than those of a large animal, as if they were bare feet, too human, but too thin, too small. You go out, the snow is deeper, the footprints go around the cabin, almost a circle, then disappear without continuing anywhere, as if whoever left them had evaporated. You go back inside, take the knife from its sheath, sharpen it with a piece of stone. Without saying anything, without thinking much, you just do it. Now, before sleeping, you put your ear to the floor. You listen for long minutes, the slight creak of the wood, the crackle of the cold against the nails, and a sound you cannot name, as if someone is breathing very low. Deep down, you start marking time on the walls, not with numbers, but with symbols. A line for each day you haven't heard voices. A dot when you dream of food. A crooked line every time you feel something behind the door. The wood is already covered in codes. Do you understand them? Only you. That's enough. The next day, you try to set a trap, a rope, a nail, a loose board. Simple things, but enough to warn you. You are not alone. You position the homemade alarm near the door. You test it. It makes enough noise to wake you up. And then you wait. When night falls, it seems darker than usual. It's not the lack of moon, it's the kind of darkness that seems tailor-made, as if it had been hand-stitched to envelop your cabin. You lie down, eyes open, one ear pressed to the wood, the other watching the silence. Hours later, the alarm goes off, a dry, short sound, and then nothing. You sit up, your heart slow, not from courage, but from resignation. Fear no longer causes a rush, just exhaustion. You wait a little longer. Nothing else happens when you finally open the door in the morning. Everything is exactly as yesterday. The same snow, the same trees. Only one thing has changed. The kettle, it is now back on the table. You swear you had left it on top of the shelf? You swear? But it says nothing. It just looks as if it always knew where it should be. The days no longer have names. You wake up without knowing if it's Tuesday, Sunday, or last Thursday. The light enters through the crack as always. But today you don't run to the window, nor do you go out to see tracks. You just sit and watch the kettle. It's exactly where you remember, but there's something different about it. A slight glow. Or maybe it's just the reflection of the fire or what's left of you. You walk to the wall, run your fingers over the marks, read what you wrote days ago and no longer understand, neither the symbols nor yourself. In the afternoon, you decide to lie on the floor out of sheer habit, as if it were a scheduled rest with time, listening to the same creaks of the wood and something else, something rhythmic. Like a faint heart beating from below. You laugh, not loudly, just enough to taste the dryness of your own mouth. You've become a cabin dweller, just another piece of furniture, a thought floating in a place without echo. Later, you light the fire with what little wood is left. It kindles slowly, as if it, too, is tired. You warm some snow, make tea with the last dry leaves. The taste, a memory. Through the window, you see birds, not many. Two, crossing the sky, swiftly. A reminder that the world still exists, and that you are, somehow, outside of it. When night falls, you sit before the fireplace and, for the first time, speak aloud. A cabin, what do you want from me? The crackle of the wood replies, not with words, but with temperature, with the smell of burning, and with time past. And you understand? It doesn't want to kill you. It just wants you to stay, and you, perhaps, are indeed staying. You close your eyes and listen to your own thoughts for the last time that night. Not with clarity, but like someone listening to a radio tuned to a channel between two stations. You dream of wood, of walls embracing you, of the kettle waving, and of the sound of the doorknob turning by itself, but you don't wake up with a fright. You just open your eyes and accept it as someone who has been out of the world for so long that the world no longer bothers to look for them. You have been lying down for a long time. You no longer think about how many days have passed. You just feel the weight of the blanket, the smell of the wood, the faint warmth still emanating from the old embers. But that morning something changes. Still with your eyes closed, you feel warmth, not from the fireplace, nor from the tea, but something different. Light, almost shy, like a forgotten hug. A ray of sunlight passes through the small crack in the wall. It cuts through the cold gently. It touches your face and then your chest, as if the world had finally remembered you. You don't get up. You don't need to. You just open your eyes and keep them half open, feeling the warmth spread through the blanket. You let out a sigh, not of tiredness, but of relief. For the first time in so long, you are not cold, and for the first time you smile for no reason. Outside, the snow shines differently, as if someone had cleaned the sky by hand. The white looks blue. The shadows are softer and the breeze no longer bites. It just passes, as if saying, "It's all right." You close your eyes again, slowly, feel the warmth on your eyelids and think, today I don't need to resist. Today I can just rest. The kettle doesn't move. But do you swear it's smiling? Or maybe it's just you. And that's enough. You surrender to sleep. A soft sleep, free of noise, free of weight. And little by little you feel everything around you. Disintegrating, the cabin wall begins to disappear, but not in a hurry, as if it were vapor, as if it had never been truly solid. The wood transforms into the smell of clean sheets. The cold floor turns into a mattress. The creak of the ceiling turns into a car passing outside, and the sound of the fireplace turns into the ticking of your bedroom clock. Your body sinks into the blanket, but not from exhaustion, from relief. You know you no longer need to hide, or look for footprints, or talk to kettles. Just breathe. One last thought before fading out. I did it. And then nothing. Just a gentle warmth, a slow breath, and the sound of the morning starting again.